You know that feeling when your life's a complete mess, but then you remember Peter Parker exists and think, alright, it could be worse? Yeah, that's the vibe. Today, we're diving into every season of the 1990s Spider-Man animated series, the one that defined a generation with heavy drama, over-the-top villains, and soap opera-worthy twists. And where does it all begin? Underground in New York City, of course. New York, the city that never sleeps, unless you're not looking closely. From above, everything seemed picture perfect. Big city, bright lights, honking taxis, that classic postcard vibe. But below the surface, deep in the damp corners of the subway, things were starting to get seriously weird. One subway worker, happily bragging about his cozy in winter, cool in summer workplace, had no idea his peaceful routine was about to be wrecked by a red-eyed creature. The result? An attack so swift it didn't even leave time for a punchline. Meanwhile, Peter Parker, our emotionally overworked hero for hire, gets a fresh assignment from the ever-charming, not J. Jonah Jameson. The boss barks, "Go snap a shot at that giant lizard causing havoc in the subway." The reward? $1,000 for a broke student living with an aunt more anxious than a reality show mom. That's basically winning the lottery. Peter immediately recalls his former professor, Dr. Curt Connors, the man who took DIY to a new level by testing genetic recombination tech on himself. At the lab, with help from his assistant Deborah Whitman, the doctor shows off the so-called Neogenic recombinator, fancy name for a contraption that mixes lizard DNA with human genes. And surprise, Curt Connors had already used the machine on himself, mutating into something closer to Jurassic Park's long-lost cousin than a decorated scientist. And because misery loves company, the lizard, yes, he's going by his stage name now, shows up at home and forcefully takes his wife. His plan? Make her help him complete a cure project that literally no one asked for. Bonus nightmare. Their son Billy witnesses the whole thing, and Spider-Man shows up promising a rescue, superhero Uber style. In his hideout, because every self-respecting villain has one, the lizard reveals the master plan: hook the recombinator into the city's power grid and transform everyone, from babies to bingo-loving grannies, into bipedal gators. The goal? Wipe out illness and amputations. His wife, still clinging to logic, tries to remind Curt they have a child. But try reasoning with a mutant who thinks he's about to win evolution's Nobel Prize. Now for the climax. Spider-Man tracks the lizard to the tunnels, and the two clash in an epic brawl. Mid-fight, someone mentions Billy's name. That hits a nerve, or what's left of one. Curt hesitates. Peter, with the reflexes of someone who's taken more beatings from life than from supervillains, seizes the moment, halts the mass mutation plan, and saves the day. Again, no raise required. Back at the Daily Bugle, Peter hands in the photos and bags the cash. Eddie Brock tries to steal the credit, claiming he found the lizard first, but with zero proof, he becomes newsroom joke fodder. As for J. Jonah Jameson, he keeps pushing his anti-hero agenda, because if there's one constant in life, it's his never-ending complaints. At home, Peter faces Aunt May, who gives him the usual sermon about safety and responsibility, but Peter knows, ditching the suit is no longer an option. He and Spider-Man are tangled up together now. We're stuck with each other forever. Honestly, some marriages don't last that long. Our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is on patrol, but as always, something feels off. His spider sense won't stop buzzing, and it quickly becomes clear why. Small drones are chasing him, fast, precise, almost like they already know his every move. Peter fights back with his webs, but he's outmatched by the machine's precision. Even with all his experience, this time he's not in control.
They split up, trying to box me in. Maybe I can use that against them.
Cut to the other side of town. Spencer Smythe unveils the Spider Slayers to Norman Osborn and Jameson, robots engineered to capture the wall crawler, because of course, instead of buying yachts, the rich decide to hunt Spider-Man. Totally not suspicious. Osborn demands results. Jameson sees headline potential in capturing the hero, and then they reveal the ultimate weapon, Black Widow, a lethal machine built to bring Spider-Man down. Cut again, this time to a charity gala at the Hardy residence. Felicia dazzles. Her mother orchestrates the event, and among the guests is Peter, camera in hand for the Daily Bugle. Felicia flirts. Flash Thompson shows up, jealous. Will things stay peaceful, or will the rich villains strike again? And yes, chaos erupts. Black Widow crashes the party, sparking panic. Peter slips away to suit up, but coincidentally, Flash is dressed in a Spider-Man costume to entertain guests. No idea where he got it, but in the confusion, he's mistaken for the real deal. Eddie Brock, desperate for a scoop, sees his golden opportunity. Peter swings into action. The battle with Black Widow is intense. The robot counters his webs with oil, predicts his attacks, but Peter adapts. Flash unintentionally distracts the machine, giving Spider-Man the opening he needs. Peter tracks down Spencer Smythe, and, under pressure, Smythe reluctantly shuts Black Widow down remotely. But the drama isn't over. Eddie rushes in to unmask Spider-Man on camera, only to reveal Flash Thompson underneath. Laughter erupts. Eddie is humiliated, and Jameson fires him on the spot. But Eddie's eyes say it all. The obsession turns to hatred, a grudge that promises revenge. After some time, guess what? The Spider Slayers are back, stronger, deadlier than ever. Peter immediately recognizes the threat. He's faced these machines before. The catch? Spencer Smythe, their original creator, is supposed to be dead. But now, his son is taken up the mantle, driven by a thirst for vengeance. He blames Spider-Man for the tragedy that ruined his father. And with Kingpin's funding, he unleashes a new generation of killer robots. Amid the chaos, Peter realizes that brute strength won't cut it. He's going to need a PhD in supervillain takedowns. To make matters worse, there's a new twist. A bomb has been strapped to his arm. He must find a way to disarm it while fending off the machines. A recipe for disaster. Eddie Brock is also back, furious and hell-bent on revenge. He blames Peter Parker for the downfall of his career, seen being dragged away by the police. He swears payback. That anger is the seed, the very moment a villain is born. Time is ticking. The bomb is about to blow, and a colossal robot stands in Peter's way. He must stop them both. And he does, with science, sheer guts, and a touch of desperation. He disarms the explosive and takes down the metal monster. The city breathes a sigh of relief. In the process, a facility linked to Oscorp is destroyed, resulting in significant losses. But Kingpin's empire remains untouched. In the end, Peter returns home, exhausted, shattered. He's just fought off a wave of chaos and come out victorious, but at a cost. And as a cruel reminder of his double life, Mary Jane shows up. It was supposed to be their date night. Peter completely forgot. She arrives in high spirits, but he's clearly drained, trying to mask his fatigue. Her disappointed look says it all. It's not overtly shown, but his guilt is unmistakable.
You just hit the jackpot.
Peter Parker can hardly believe it. He has a date with Felicia Hardy. Yes, our nerd is going out with someone who could be a model. Totally real, right? Nervous, he knocks on the door of the Hardy mansion and steps inside, feeling like a fish out of water amid all the luxury. The difference between their worlds is striking, but he tries to keep his cool, with little success. The meeting is abruptly interrupted when Dr. Octopus attacks the house they're in. With no time to become Spider-Man, Peter watches helplessly as Felicia is kidnapped right before his eyes. A ransom message soon follows. The villain reveals himself, Otto Octavius, once a mentor to Peter at science camp, now disfigured and bent on revenge against the Hardy Foundation, which pulled the plug on his research. The blow hits Peter hard. Seeing a childhood idol turn into a villain, yeah, that's a gut punch. Jameson tries to negotiate live on TV, but Octopus hijacks the broadcast, taking over the message to taunt and challenge everyone watching. The tension spikes with 2 lives on the line. Peter attempts to deliver the ransom, but guess what? Octopus breaks the deal and takes Jameson hostage too. Now with 2 captives, the villain doubles his demands. Felicia's mother blames Peter for failing to protect her daughter, cutting him to the core. Shaken but determined, Peter knows it's time to act, not with brute strength, but with brains. He contacts Otto as Peter Parker, hoping to reach the man beneath the metal, appealing to their shared past, real admiration, and memories. What happens? Octavius hesitates, but the bitterness wins out. The final showdown takes place in an abandoned rocket factory, where Octopus unveils his fusion battery, the very invention that made him a pariah and fused the mechanical arms to his body. Now unstable and dangerously volatile, Spider-Man swings into action. Using principles of electromagnetism, he overloads the mechanical arms, disabling them just long enough to save the hostages before a massive explosion engulfs the facility. The chaos kicks off in classic fashion, a mysterious theft in the museum's Egyptian wing. Ancient statues here, priceless relics there, and suddenly, the artifacts vanish, but no one expected the prime suspect, according to the world's most glitchy alarms and security cams, to be him, Spider-Man. Yep, our friendly neighborhood hero just got a promotion. Now he's the thief of ancient treasures. Yesterday the city called him Savior, and today they're ready to throw stones. The big question, has the hero turned into the villain? Meanwhile, Peter Parker is busy playing the usual theater of normal life. He chats with MJ about school. She's talking about a project and the upcoming festival, and he's pretending everything everything's under control. Spoiler alert, it's not. His grip on normal vanishes faster than his reputation, especially when the human tabloid tornado himself shows up. J. Jonah Jameson, live on national TV with that voice that sounds like it's smoked Marlboro since kindergarten. He proclaims, "Spider-Man is a criminal." Boom, that's all it takes for public opinion to flip faster than fans during a reality show finale. And because when it rains it pours, a new name enters the game. Mysterio, a guy whose name sounds like a telenovela villain and whose debut video is more dramatic than a perfume commercial. He vows, in that over-the-top way only a washed-up showman could, to capture the corrupted hero and bring peace back to the city. But of course, it's all smoke and mirrors. What he really wants is Spider-Man's spotlight, the fame, the glory, the hero creds. Then comes the mall attack, and guess who gets blamed? Bingo, Spidey again. But something's off. Peter picks up on a tiny detail, that Spider-Man has a laugh straight out of a Scooby-Doo villain audition. It wasn't him. It was Mysterio using holograms, because if there's one thing villains love, it's overpriced tech used for petty tantrums. With the city turning its back and his sanity circling the drain, Peter spirals into one of those heavy flashbacks. The murder of Uncle Ben. It's pain. It's guilt. It's the kind of emotional baggage therapy could fix if heroes could afford it.
The one I should have stopped, but I didn't. I had the power and I didn't use it. I lost my uncle because I ignored my responsibilities.
But since that's off the table, he channels it into resolve. If they're going to treat him like the villain, he'll fight like the hero. The trail leads to Wonder Studios, where the infamous Mysterio, surprise! He's Quentin Beck, a former visual effects specialist whose career tanked after an on-set accident, had masterminded everything. And why? Because the accident ruined him. And of course, it's all Spider-Man's fault, because isn't it always? The final showdown is pure Broadway. Illusions everywhere, twisted reality, and a Peter so lost he could use a GPS. But he trusts his instincts, tunes out what he sees, and locks onto what he feels. And that leads him straight to the real culprit. It ends the way it should. Peter puts on a show, shatters Mysterio's tricks, and clears his name. After so many wild battles, Peter Parker just wanted a normal moment. For what felt like the 1000th time, he tries to ask Felicia Hardy out. He was hoping for a lighthearted moment, but instead, he gets doused with cold water. Felicia shuts him down directly. She sees Peter only as a classmate. Brilliant, sure, but not someone she'd have dinner with. Peter takes it quietly. But let's be real, getting rejected stings. Wounded, Peter turns to what he knows best, the mask. When a robbery breaks out in the city, he swings into action as Spider-Man. Amidst the quips and acrobatics, he faces the criminals with his usual flair, and in that chaos, he finds a strange sense of peace. But in the shadows, J. Jonah Jameson takes his obsession with Spider-Man to a whole new level. It's almost a twisted kind of admiration. Blinded by his crusade, he teams up with scientist Dr. Stillwell to transform the Gargan, a mere thug, into a living experiment. Using radiation and genetic engineering, they create the Scorpion. The mutation works too well. Enhanced strength, deadly agility, and a vicious tail. But it also makes Gargan dangerously unstable, consumed by his transformation and emotional turmoil. The Scorpion turns against everyone, including Jameson, his own creator. Fair enough. Who wouldn't snap working for Jonah? Believing he can undo his mutation with another dose of radiation, he sets out to break into a nuclear reactor. At the facility, Peter confronts the Scorpion in a desperate showdown. Exhausted and at great risk, he throws everything he's got into the fight. With grit and cleverness, he stops the explosion and saves the city, and even Jameson. For a fleeting moment, Jameson shows something close to gratitude. Could he finally drop his vendetta? Nope, his bitterness quickly resurfaces. Still, in that brief instant, Peter sees a glimmer of humanity in him. They say the dead never truly stay buried, and Kraven is living proof. But he's not the man Mariah once knew. He's a shadow of his former self, consumed by feral instincts, a fate that, perhaps, was always lurking beneath the surface. Mariah tries to hold on, insisting she needs to finish her research to cure him, but Sergei doesn't want to listen. He's no longer Sergei, he is Kraven. Amid the chaos, Mariah confides in Peter. She reveals she saved Sergei's life with a mysterious substance, the so-called panacea. What was meant to be a cure turned into a curse. The man she loved was swallowed by beastly instincts. Kraven was born from it, and now she bears the guilt of bringing him back.
But my greatest fear came true. New instincts burned in his blood.
Things take a darker turn when Craven kidnaps Robbie Robertson, demanding that Mariah come to him if she wants to see Robbie alive. Spidey learns about the abduction after a direct confrontation with Craven. Peter realizes he can't wait any longer. It's time to hunt the hunter. The trap is set at a jungle-themed show that would make Dante jealous. Robbie is the bait. Peter swings into action. The showdown is ferocious, acrobatic, and tense. Craven attacks with everything he's got, and Peter searches for an opening, just as Mariah arrives with the antidote in hand. At the climax of the battle, Craven spots Mariah, and for a moment, he hesitates. The beast falters. Mariah doesn't miss a beat. She injects the antidote. Sergei stumbles, defeated. "I feel human again," he murmurs, in a rare flash of clarity. But is it the end of the beast? Or merely a pause in the madness? It was supposed to be a simple exploration mission. Guess what? Mankind ended up polluting space forever. That's how it goes. The moment astronauts John Jameson and Paul Stevenson set foot on the asteroid, something feels off. The rocks seem volcanic. One of them, black as obsidian, appears to be bleeding. Curiosity quickly turns to panic. The ground shakes. Something reacts to their touch. Something black, alive. First contact is made, but no one knows what it means yet. On the way back to Earth, chaos follows. The shuttle tries to land at a regular airport but loses control and crashes into the Hudson River. Panic, confusion, media frenzy, the usual New York madness. And right in the middle of it, he appears. Spider-Man rescues the astronauts and becomes a headline, but only for a moment. Spider-Man tries to stop Rhino, who storms into the wreckage and steals the Promethium X, a new type of nuclear fuel. Even though Peter witnesses the theft, he's the one who ends up being blamed. Eddie Brock lies, claiming he saw Spider-Man commit the crime, and promises to deliver photographic proof. J. Jonah Jameson buys the story. $1 million reward is offered for Spidey's capture, from savior to public enemy number 1, just like that. Peter wakes up dangling in the middle of Manhattan, like he partied too hard and blacked out, except he doesn't remember how he got there. He's wearing a new suit. Black, sleek, ominous, stronger, faster, more aggressive, and the worst part, he has no memory of putting it on. The symbiote starts acting on its own. Peter, thrilled by the power, doesn't question it yet, but the suit changes more than just his outfit. Peter's sense of style isn't the only thing that's shifted. He becomes sarcastic, cocky, and starts acting downright cruel, a total Chad. He mocks Flash, teases Felicia, crosses lines he never would have before. On the hunt for the Promethium X, he finds Rhino, and this time defeats him with ease, leaving the villain absolutely terrified. He nearly crosses the line into vengeance, but pulls back at the last second. This isn't about justice anymore, it's rage. Back in his room, Peter starts to realize something's wrong. He's lost control, and the question begins to haunt him. What's happening to me? Suspicious and increasingly disturbed, Peter seeks out Dr. Connors, who finally reveals the truth. The suit is a living alien symbiote, one that alters both the body and the mind of its host. It's a brutal dilemma. Should Peter remove the suit for his own safety? We might think we're left hanging, but not really. Even knowing the danger, Peter hesitates, and that hesitation says it all. Meanwhile, Eddie Brock hits rock bottom. Again, what a shock. Exposed by Jameson for fabricating a story about Spider-Man, Eddie is fired, loses his home, his reputation, everything. Broken and consumed by bitterness, he becomes the perfect target for the symbiote. Now roaming in search of a new host, the race for Promethium X heats up. Shocker is engaged in frenzied combat under Smythe's orders, and Jameson, swallowing his pride yet again, asks Spider-Man for help to save his son. Despite all the tension, scientific analyses reveal that the material degrades far too quickly, worthless in the end. All that chaos, all for something fleeting. As Peter becomes more and more consumed by the suit, he remembers Uncle Ben's words, "With great power comes great responsibility." It's the moment of clarity he needed. In a scene of pain and release, he uses sonic waves to tear the symbiote off, a smart move that shows how well structured the episode really is. A scream back to sanity, but the rejected creature finds Eddie Brock and bonds with him. The fusion of hatred and symbiote brings forth a nightmare. Venom is about to be born.
Spider-Man, enjoy your fame while it lasts.
In the end, as Promethium X proves to be a total failure, the true threat takes shape in silence. Peter Parker, our eternally unlucky mascot, switches from freelance photographer who gets beat up by villains mode to full-on Sherlock Holmes. He's trying to stay one step ahead of this episode's big threat, Eddie Brock. Now, Eddie was never exactly the poster boy for mental stability, but things take a sketchy turn when Peter discovers he's been renting gym equipment in a place so shady even Deadpool would raise an eyebrow. But this isn't just a fitness phase. Brock's bulky bulking up like he's training for the UFC. Peter quickly realizes this is not the same Eddie from their Daily Bugle days. This guy isn't going down with a quip and a kick to the jaw. Meanwhile, Venom, as subtle as a runaway dump truck, starts making Peter's life a living hell. He stalks him, threatens to out his secret identity to the media, and basically puts everything Peter has built as a hero at risk. This isn't just a fight, it's a real-time psychological torture fest. And Peter? He's spiraling like any teenager who just got dumped and received a death threat in the same afternoon. Brock doesn't just want to beat him, he wants to break him, piece by piece, with instructions. Caught in the middle of this hardcore stalker vibe, Peter goes into protector mode and takes Mary Jane home. But, of course, this is Parker we're talking about. The universe practically has a script ready for when he tries to play it safe. Eddie shows up, all dressed in his old friend disguise. But the second his true intentions come out, the mood shifts faster than J. Jonah Jameson's opinion on Spider-Man. The showdown is officially on. Peter knows there's no running from this. He has to face Venom head on. And so we reach the climax. Peter hatches a plan and lures Venom into a romantic getaway at NASA's launch site. Because if you're gonna fight, might as well have rocket fuel in the background, right? Surprisingly, it's not all fists and webs. Peter plays it smart. He uses the rocket's vibrations as a weapon, knowing full well the symbiote hates sound more than Flash Thompson hates physics tests. As the rocket launches, the sonic blast does its job. It violently separates Brock from the symbiote. Peter wins, not with brute force, but with the strategy of a chess master on an espresso bender. After everything that's happened, Harry Osborn comes forward with a surprising offer, sharing a luxurious apartment overlooking Central Park, fully paid for by Norman Osborn. Peter hesitates. After all, he barely knows Harry and knows he's close friends with Flash. But Harry is straightforward. He wants to step out of his father's shadow, is looking for stability, and sees Peter as a trustworthy roommate. After an honest and lighthearted talk, Peter agrees to consider it. Shortly after, during a ceremony at Empire State University, sponsored by Wilson Fisk, with Norman Osborn as the keynote speaker, chaos erupts. A masked villain swoops in on a glider, the Hobgoblin. He dives straight at Fisk. Peter vanishes amidst the confusion, and Spider-Man swings into action. The battle is intense, and it's just the beginning. Behind the scenes, it's revealed that Norman had hired the Hobgoblin to eliminate Fisk, but the plan fails. Fisk escapes, and Norman cuts the mercenary loose. Feeling betrayed, the Hobgoblin threatens to expose Osborn's secrets and decides to go rogue, now driven by revenge. Tensions hit a breaking point when the Hobgoblin storms Peter and Harry's new apartment. In the chaos, Aunt May, who was visiting, gets caught in the destruction and suffers a nervous breakdown. She's rushed to the hospital. Peter is crushed with guilt. Once again, his life as a hero is hurting those he loves. As Peter struggles to pick up the pieces, he has no idea the villain's alliance is about to shift. The Hobgoblin makes an unbelievable offer to Fisk. He wants to be his new partner. He reveals Norman's betrayal and offers his services as a new right-hand man in exchange for power, resources, and loyalty. Fisk accepts. To prove he's in charge, he orders Harry Osborn's abduction, demanding all of Norman's inventions in exchange for his son. With everything spiraling out of control, Peter suits up again. It all leads to a brutal aerial showdown between Spider-Man and the Hobgoblin, now riding a weaponized turbocharged glider. The fight is fast, acrobatic, and deadly. Despite being emotionally shaken, Peter faces the battle head-on, knowing the threat has never felt more real. Cornered, Norman Osborn finally reveals the truth. He made a dark, dubious pact with Hobgoblin to save his company and legacy. Yes, the man struck a shady supernatural deal, but when he sees the disappointment in his son Harry's eyes, he realizes he's lost something far greater, his son's trust. For the first time, Norman shows a glimpse of his humanity. The father-son confrontation hits an emotional breaking point, torn between guilt, pride, and regret. Meanwhile, Peter Parker is reeling from the attack on Aunt May and the authorities' indifference. With no one to turn to, he decides to take matters into his own hands.
It means a lot to Aunt May. And to me. I hope someday you forgive me, Aunt May. This is all my fault.
Suiting up once again, burdened with the weight of responsibility, Peter infiltrates Hobgoblin's lair, determined to protect those he loves. Inside the hideout, tensions explode. Hobgoblin confronts Norman, demanding the pact be fulfilled. He doesn't just want Osborn's inventions, he wants full control of Oscorp. The presence of Harry only intensifies the stakes. Norman tries to save his son and atone for his sins, but everything shifts with Peter's arrival. The confrontation spirals into chaos. Hobgoblin, now unhinged, seeks to dominate everything but faces fierce resistance from all sides. Then, an unexpected player enters the scene. Kingpin, still wielding some influence, he looks to preserve his advantage amid the collapse. Watching alongside Smythe, he decides to retreat. His henchmen scatter. Hobgoblin, now cornered, is finally defeated, not by brute strength alone, but by the cunning alliance of his enemies. The harsh lesson stands clear. In this world, intelligence is just as deadly a weapon. Our boy Parker is going through one of the darkest periods of his life. Lost in thought, he talks out loud, venting to the quiet city, or maybe just to himself, trying to cope with his growing loneliness. Emo vibes all around. Even when thinking of people like Felicia Hardy or Mary Jane, he feels distant, almost disconnected. The cost of being a hero is steep, and the emotional toll is starting to show. During a day patrol, something alarming happens. His powers fail. He tries to scale a wall and falls. He tries again, same result. Doubt creeps in. Who is Peter without Spider-Man? Meanwhile, in the criminal underworld, the Kingpin is orchestrating something dangerous. His latest bid for world domination. He assembles 6 villains: Chameleon, Mysterio, Rhino, Scorpion, Shocker, and Dr. Octopus. The Insidious Six is born. Defeated individually, can they succeed as a team? At the university, Peter tries to maintain a sense of normalcy. He attends a lecture by Dr. Connors on neogenetics and meets Michael Morbius, who mentions a science competition before being abruptly interrupted. But Peter is distracted, trapped between the fear of losing his powers and a spiraling identity crisis. Felicia Hardy invites him to a science event. Maybe there's still hope for Peter on this social tinder of life, but peace doesn't last. The Insidious Six attack. Peter, powerless, tries to fight back, barely escaping. For the first time, he realizes he can't win. And honestly, if it takes 6 villains and a powerless Spider-Man to beat him, that says more about them than it does about Spidey. Desperate, he turns to Dr. Connors. The diagnosis is grim. Peter's genetic structure is changing. His powers might be deteriorating or evolving. With no clear answers, Peter begins to imagine a normal life, away from danger, away from responsibility. But the danger grows. Villains like Dr. Octopus are taking an interest in Peter, inching dangerously close to his personal life. The secret he fought so hard to protect is on the verge of collapse. Then comes the cruelest blow. Aunt May disappears. Now things just got real. At home, Peter finds a threatening note. Even without powers, he puts on the suit. He heads to the meeting spot, only to walk straight into a trap. But fate smiles on Peter as the Insidious Six begins to fracture from within. Kingpin, once untouchable, feels his grip slipping. Aunt May's kidnapping was supposed to be a checkmate move, but it turns into a disaster. Silvermane doesn't bother to hide his contempt, and the rest of the crew exchange jabs and veiled threats. Tension builds. The alliance is now a powder keg, ready to blow. Meanwhile, Peter is truly weakened, caught in his dramatic emo phase.
The doctor says I had a virus.
Don't worry, ma'am. With Dr. Octavius, your nephew's in the very best of hands.
Yeah, all 6 of them.
But with a mix of strategy and tech, he uses holograms to deceive the villains. Even in his fragile state, he manages to locate and rescue Aunt May. Their reunion is a relief, but the calm doesn't last. Something strange is happening. His reflexes are quicker, his leaps higher, his powers are returning. Unstable, unpredictable, and it terrifies him. The genetic mutation may be more dangerous than he ever imagined, and we're about to enter a much darker story that could lead us into uncharted territory. On the other side, Silvermane grows tired of Kingpin's rule and stages a coup that fails. Any resemblance to real-world politics is purely coincidental. The conflict escalates, but Kingpin strikes back, maintaining control through sheer force. Betrayals erupt from every corner. Rhino loses control. Mysterio tries to contain the chaos with illusions, and the tension among the villains keeps mounting. Kingpin's empire is shaking, but it doesn't fall. He survives, wounded in pride, but still in command. Peter tries to salvage something outside the mask. He goes to see Felicia, only to find her with Michael Morbius. Has Peter been betrayed again? Tired of always being left behind, Felicia has moved on. The goodbye comes with no shouting, just a silence heavier than any punch. Peter realizes what he's lost. Again, after all, who wants to stay with a brooding guy who disappears all the time? In the end, the hardest blow comes in a medical office. Peter learns his mutation is accelerating. His DNA is changing too fast. He's not just losing his powers, he's losing himself. What defines Peter Parker is fading, and what's coming next may not even be human anymore. Uncertainty eats away at him. Desperate for answers, Peter decides to visit Xavier's mansion. Perhaps the mutant school holds the key to curing his his mutation. There, he meets the X-Men. The reception is cold. Rogue flirts with him, while Wolverine greets him with hostility. Charles Xavier welcomes him, but without offering false hope. His mission is not to cure, but to teach acceptance. But Peter isn't buying it. He's turning into something apocalyptic, and Xavier's speech might comfort mutants with powers and supermodel looks, but it doesn't work for those who become monsters or kill with a touch. While the X-Men preach identity, Peter just wants his normal life back. Meanwhile, we're introduced to Herbert Landon, a scientist at the Brand Corporation. Behind his rhetoric of genetic progress, he hides a genocidal agenda. Using research by Hank McCoy, Beast, he develops a formula designed to wipe out mutants. The tension escalates. Peter connects with Beast. They share a profound conversation about humanity and the fear of isolation. Honestly, it's hard to blame Spider-Man for not wanting to become an unrecognizable monster. It's a melancholy moment that exposes the vulnerability in both of them. During a Brand Corporation conference, chaos erupts when the Hobgoblin attacks, nearly causing a disaster.
Hobgoblin? I guess this meeting's adjourned.
Jeez, you didn't think I'd fall for that old exploding warehouse?
As Spider-Man, Peter rushes to contain the damage, holding up the collapsing ceiling with his web. Amid the confusion, Beast is captured by Landon's henchmen. Landon reveals his betrayal. He will use Hank's own research to kill him, a twisted way to prove the formula's effectiveness. Beast's science becomes the weapon against him. Meanwhile, Wolverine begins investigating Beast's disappearance. His search leads him to the outskirts of Landon's laboratory. Spider-Man and Wolverine decide it's time to act. They break into Landon's lab in search of answers. An unlikely duo, but maybe just what the situation calls for. Inside, they uncover a horrifying truth. Landon is developing a technology designed to eradicate genetic mutations. His assistant, who initially supported the project, begins to question its morality. Torn between the desire to end suffering and the duty to preserve life, she finds herself in a deep ethical dilemma. Suddenly, chaos erupts. The Hobgoblin hacks into the lab system, downloads all the research onto a CD-ROM, and deletes the original files, plunging the facility into disarray. From that point on, everything escalates. Even under pressure, Peter steps up, collaborating with the X-Men and taking the lead with strategic teamwork. Then, the unthinkable happens. Landon is caught in a lab accident and mutates into a monstrous creature that feeds on electricity to survive. It feels like fate, or maybe just ironic storytelling, that the man obsessed with eradicating mutants becomes one himself. Out of control, he begins absorbing the city's power grid, growing into a colossal threat. That's when the X-Men arrive. Rogue, Gambit, Storm, and Jubilee join forces with Spider-Man to stop the disaster. Using antennae and electromagnetic fields, they devise a bold plan. Rogue carries out the heavy lifting phase, restraining Landon with high-voltage cables linked to the Blackbird, but it's Landon's assistant, revealing her hidden telekinetic powers, who stabilizes the aircraft just in time, ensuring the plan succeeds. Overwhelmed by his own mutation, Landon collapses. Now we dive into a different story. Michael Morbius is introduced as a brilliant student, driven by the noble desire to cure the disease that devastated his homeland. But his quest turns dangerous when he secretly begins experimenting with bat DNA and Peter Parker's blood, which he steals without permission from a sample left in the lab. His ideal becomes an obsession, his ethics, his downfall. When Morbius activates his Neogenic machine, he undergoes a monstrous transformation, an apocalyptic mutation of unknown origin. He convulses, morphs, muscles, bones, senses, until he becomes a creature craving plasma, a vampire born of science. Disoriented and ravenous, Morbius attempts to attack Peter, but flees before a direct confrontation. Peter realizes something is deeply wrong. Guess who shows up this time? Felicia Hardy. Growing closer to Morbius, she refuses to heed Peter's warnings, thinking he's just jealous. Despite the odd behavior, she shows compassion when Morbius appears weakened and desperate for help. Peter begins to see Morbius as a distorted reflection of himself, a uniquely empathetic moment. Both victims of genetic experiments, both searching for a cure, yet standing on opposite sides of humanity. Morbius's mutation evolves. At night, he prowls the city in search of plasma. If he were as brooding as Peter, he'd be Dracula by now. At dawn, he temporarily reverts to normal, revealing a weakness to sunlight. During one of his hunts, he nearly kills an innocent, but the sun stops him. Peter, moved by Morbius's tragedy, chooses to confront him, not out of anger, but to save her. Morbius mysteriously disappears from his room, sparking suspicions. Felicia suspects Spider-Man kidnapped Morbius. Disillusioned, she turns on Peter and threatens to call the police. Meanwhile, Peter makes a radical decision to use Dr. Dr. Crawford's unstable serum. Everything spirals out of control as Peter's mutation progresses unchecked. Yes, it was a terrible mistake. The mutation alters both body and mind, and Peter no longer recognizes himself. Peter Parker no longer exists, he says, consumed by a pain that goes far beyond the physical. Meanwhile, Mary Jane and Aunt May are plunged into days of sheer despair, with no news from him. Disturbing headlines speak of a monstrous Spider-Man connected to mysterious plasma-drained victims. Fear spreads through the city, and guess who rises from the ashes? Kraven returns. Summoned by Mariah Crawford, he comes back with a new purpose. The mission is clear: save Peter before the mutation becomes irreversible. Yes, the man's a legend, and this time, he calls upon his ancient rituals not for glory, but in pursuit of personal redemption, a true warrior's path. As MJ accompanies May to the police station in search of answers, Morbius slips back into the shadows. Weakened and starving, he seeks out Felicia, revealing just how lost he's become, cut off from everything. He too wrestles with the dilemma of living between man and monster. Will he give in to the beast within? It seems likely. Elsewhere in the city, another familiar face returns. Flash Thompson. He breaks into a lab and comes face to face with the creature. He tries to play it cool, but is easily overpowered, and then something unexpected happens. Peter hesitates. Despite his grotesque form, something inside still stops him from hurting an innocent. In the climax, Kraven confronts the beast. The battle is fierce, but his goal is containment, not destruction. Mariah arrives with the antidote and cries out that monster is still Peter, the fallen hero, the missing friend. Is there still hope for the Spiner Boy? In a final united effort, they administer the serum. Slowly, the mutation retreats. Peter returns, exhausted but human once more, as the city reels from a wave of mysterious attacks. An even darker figure resurfaces. Morbius, now completely overtaken by his vampiric urges, returns to assault innocent students, Flash Thompson among them, plunging the city into panic and renewing public suspicion that Spider-Man may not be the hero everyone believes. Amidst this tense atmosphere, one of the most badass figures in the universe emerges. Blade, the vampire hunter, a relentless shadow. To him, Morbius is beyond saving. To Peter, there's still hope. Their clash isn't just physical, it's a full-blown ideological battle. Redemption versus extermination. Peter then learns Blade's backstory through Whistler, his trusted mentor. Blade is a Dhampir, the offspring of a human and a vampire, immune to sunlight and the typical undead weaknesses. An origin story as cool as it is tragic. Whistler further explains that vampires aren't supernatural, but rather genetic mutations that exist in various corners of the world. Meanwhile, Felicia Hardy is consumed by overwhelming guilt. It was her blood that transformed Michael Morbius. Yes, he conducted a reckless experiment, and now she blames herself. Determined to make things right, she vows to help him, even if it means going up against Blade or any obstacle in her path. Her pain becomes her drive. Tension peaks when Morbius attacks the Neogenic lab, the only place with a tech that could either cure him or destroy Peter. An intense showdown erupts inside. Blade, Peter, and Morbius engage in a brutal fight over Michael's fate. In the end, Morbius escapes once more, but Whistler reveals a chilling truth. There are others, other vampires, many, and if they unite, the world could be doomed. Another evil vampire alliance looming. Spider-Man tails Morbius through the city's shadowy streets, guided by Blade's vampire compass. The goal, to stop Morbius from finding the Neogenic recombinator chip, a piece of tech capable not only of transforming him, but of creating an entirely new race of vampires. Super original plan, right? The hunt leads them to a tech company. There, Morbius breaks in, clashes with both the police and Spider-Man, and escapes with the chip. From that point on, Detective Terry Lee, once a skeptic, is forced to accept a harsh truth. Vampires are real, the world is changed, and it's time to learn more from Blade. At the Hunter's base, Terry witnesses Blade injecting himself with the serum that keeps his bloodlust at bay. The mask of the relentless warrior slips. She now sees the man behind the blade. So far, best character in the arc. Meanwhile, guess what? Yep, Morbius attacks Peter Parker's home. Innocent Aunt May becomes a target. Peter, torn between protecting his aunt and stopping Felicia from being dragged into darkness, feels the mounting burden of his double life. At the Daily Bugle, Jameson demands results. Peter promises an exclusive shot of the vampire terrorizing the university. He's no longer the scared intern. He's starting to understand the weight of the responsibility he carries. But Mary Jane is the one who pays the price. She opens up. She's tired of the secrets, the no-shows, the broken promises. When Peter hesitates, she sees it clearly. It's over. The relationship collapses under the weight of the Spider-Man mantle. Once again, the boy behind the mask is left out in the cold. Morbius kidnaps Felicia. He wants to transform her, make her part of his new existence, a vampire in love, and yet still more original than Twilight. But Felicia rejects him. She realizes that the man she once loved has been consumed by the creature he became. It's a final, irreversible break. With the chip, Morbius activates the recombinator. The mutation overtakes him. Spider-Man and Felicia try to stop him, but it's too late. His monstrous transformation accelerates. His eyes, now soulless, reflect nothing but the beast he has become. After all the heartbreak, we shift focus to Toomes, who has become obsessed with regaining his youth. He uses a neogenic recombinant that grants him superhuman strength and agility, but at a terrible cost. His body begins to oscillate uncontrollably between young and old, and his mind becomes as unstable as his appearance. The situation worsens when Toomes steals part of Peter Parker's youth and DNA, and we all know how that turns out. The result? Peter begins aging rapidly. White hair, wrinkles, aching joints. The toll is brutal. For the first time, Spider-Man truly feels the fear of disappearing, not as a hero, but as a person. Out on the streets, no one recognizes him. Worse, they treat him like a helpless old man, with no other options. Peter turns to Dr. Connors for help, but can he really do anything? Meanwhile, Dr. Stillwell is kidnapped by the Scorpion, who's desperate to reverse his own mutation. Connors devises a risky genetic transfer procedure. He tricks Toomes and uses the villain's talons to reverse the unstable DNA inside Peter. The process restores Peter's youth, and along with it, his powers. More than that, he's finally free of the neogenic mutation that threatened to turn him into a monstrous Spider-Man. But just as he's about to catch his breath, fate strikes again. Mary Jane was about to reunite with her father, and Peter had promised to be there for her. But when he arrives at the meeting spot, she's already gone. No trace. No clue. Dr. Michael Pingree presents an argon laser capable of cutting through metal while preserving living tissue. The audience applauds, until the arrival of Otto Octavius, better known as Dr. Octopus. He claims to be the true inventor of the technology and accuses Pingree of being merely his assistant. Otto attempts to use the laser on Spider-Man, forgetting that the weapon doesn't affect organic matter. The result? His metal tentacles become an easy target. Despite the setback, Otto manages to escape. The chase leads them to a medical lab funded by the Hardy Foundation, where their clash ends in disaster. The facility explodes, and the Daily Bugle headlines scream, "Spider-Man destroys medical lab." J. Jonah Jameson is relentless in his condemnation. Peter, overwhelmed with guilt, decides to give up the suit and leave Spider-Man behind. But fate has other plans. Madame Web appears, transporting Peter into a mystical dimension. She speaks of training he must undergo for a future mission and challenges him on his self-pity. When Peter returns, he miraculously finds a fan letter in the alley, one he had previously discarded. It's from Tina, a young girl who dreams of meeting Spider-Man. Deeply moved, the encounter rekindles Peter's memories of his origin and the loss of Uncle Ben, reminding him why he wears the mask. Inspired by Tina, Peter takes her on a web-swinging flight across the city, but the magical moment is cut short. Dr. Octopus returns, this time controlling a new weapon, the Octobot. A fierce battle ensues, putting Tina in danger. Peter tries to break Otto's focus to weaken his control over the Octobot, but is eventually overcome by gas and taken captive. The neuroneutralizer wipes his memories, turning him into a seeming ally of the villain. Now, standing beside the villain, he takes part in a heist at the metal foundry, confused about his identity and driven by false memories. Tina, determined to save Spider-Man, tries to alert the adults, but finds support only from a taxi driver named Mousy. Together, they set out to find Peter. In the middle of the robbery, the girl's presence shakes something inside the dormant hero. Something stirs. Memories flicker like lightning in his foggy mind. In a surge of memories and emotion, Peter breaks free. He shatters Octavius's mental control, confronts the villain with renewed courage, and shields Tina like a true hero. After the battle, Peter takes her home, and, in a rare gesture, he removes his mask. "My name is Peter Parker." He shares with her his greatest secret. In return, she offers a vow of silence and eternal admiration. She smiles, deeply moved. He calls her a hero, the bravest little girl he's ever met, because she was the one who saved Spider-Man from himself. This time, Norman Osborn is obsessed with completing his secret gas formula at Oscorp, and he's under pressure from the media. Shortly after, a massive explosion rips through Oscorp's facilities. Norman enters a highly unstable lab and disappears, presumed dead. In shock, Harry refuses to accept the loss. During a board meeting, he lashes out in fury, accusing the executives of betrayal, convinced they drove his father to ruin. Meanwhile, a new masked villain emerges, the Green Goblin. He begins kidnapping Oscorp board members, using weapons strikingly similar to those once wielded by the Hobgoblin, all based on Oscorp tech. Mary Jane confides in Peter. Harry has always carried deep emotional scars. fueled by years of loneliness and neglect. Still, Peter believes in his friend's innocence and decides to wait for proof. With the hostages in his grasp, the Goblin stages a twisted trial, accusing each executive of betraying Norman Osborn. Spider-Man crashes the scene and rescues the captives. During the intense battle, the shocking truth is revealed. The Green Goblin is Norman Osborn himself. He survived the explosion, but the gas mutated him into an unstable, violent version of himself. At the end of the clash, Norman begins to weaken. Spider-Man saves him from drowning while Harry watches. Relieved. Disoriented, Norman claims he remembers nothing. In an unexpected move, Norman decides to step away from Oscorp and shut down all projects related to chemical weapons. For the first time, he expresses trust in Harry, saying his son is ready to take on a leadership role. Peter has been recruited by the promising tech company Fisktronics thanks to Richard Fisk in what seemed like a genuine offer, a gesture of gratitude for Peter saving the life of his father, Wilson Fisk. A high salary, prestige, cutting-edge technology, it all seemed like a dream, but would soon turn into a trap. When Fisktronics' criminal interests are threatened, Peter is chosen as the perfect scapegoat. The setup unfolds when, during a routine security check, Peter is ambushed by agents accusing him of stealing classified military data. A disk containing technical information becomes the fabricated proof of espionage. Officer Terry Lee and federal agent Susan Choi arrest him. No one listens. The judgment has already been passed. Enter Matt Murdock, a criminal defense attorney, and secretly, the masked vigilante Daredevil. He believes in Peter's innocence and is determined to go beyond the courtroom. Trust builds quickly between them, a bond that will prove vital. Peter is soon taken by thugs in what appears to be a rescue mission, another layer of Wilson Fisk's plan to stage a phony escape, making Peter look even more guilty. In an unventilated cell, Peter faces Fisk himself, who reveals he's the mastermind behind the entire scheme. At his side is the Chameleon. Trapped and running out of air, Peter begins to lose consciousness. Fisk chose him as the fall guy to safeguard his criminal empire. With Peter missing, Matt Murdock sends his alter ego, Daredevil, to investigate. The man without fear infiltrates the facility and rescues Peter just in time. During their escape, Daredevil shares his tragic origin, the death of his father, the accident that left him blind, his grueling training under Stick, and his mission to take down the Kingpin. A new alliance is born between these two vigilantes. Meanwhile, May collapses from stress, and Mary Jane confronts Aunt Anna. The fallout from the conspiracy reaches even those far from the front lines. Determined to clear his name, Peter returns to Fisktronics in search of evidence. There, he crosses paths with Daredevil, who is also investigating. The two clash at first, but quickly realize they're fighting for the same cause. Peter finally manages to secure the data and hand it over to Matt Murdock, but there's no time to breathe. The building catches fire, and amid smoke and chaos, he gives Matt the drive. Matt promises to fight for his acquittal in court, but hope is short-lived. Peter receives devastating news. Aunt May has collapsed and is in critical condition at the hospital. Even as a fugitive, Peter doesn't hesitate. With Mary Jane ever steadfast by his side, he risks everything to see his aunt one last time. Then comes the unexpected betrayal. Anna Watson, who appeared to be helping him escape, is revealed to be the Chameleon in disguise. Peter is deceived, the disc is stolen, and Kingpin's plan continues unchecked. Meanwhile, the true face of the villain is unveiled. Behind the criminal empire lies a past of rejection, humiliation, and ruthless ambition. From a marginalized boy to the king of crime, the origin of Kingpin is revealed in chilling detail. With everything on the line, Peter and Daredevil storm the enemy stronghold. A brutal showdown unfolds. They confront the real Kingpin in a fierce battle, but once again, he slips away. Despite the setback, they claim key victories. Richard Fisk, Chameleon, and the corrupt agent Susan Choi are arrested and convicted. Peter is cleared of all charges, though danger still looms. Kingpin, unpunished, offers a public apology. Peter accepts, not out of forgiveness, but as a warning. Peter barely has time to process the shock of Harry and Mary Jane's engagement when an urgent call interrupts him. On the other end is the desperate voice of Alistair Smythe, pleading for help. He claims Kingpin is about to betray him and promises to reveal critical secrets in exchange for protection. Though suspicious, Peter decides to hear him out. But when Peter arrives at the rendezvous point, he finds a completely transformed Smythe, now the ultimate slayer, a deadly cyborg engineered to destroy Spider-Man. A brutal fight ensues. Peter barely escapes, but not before noticing a brief moment of hesitation in Smythe, a flicker of humanity still lingering inside him. Without warning, thing, Peter is pulled into another dimension by Madame Web. She confronts him, saying he's distracted, torn between his emotions and his duty. She urges him to not only understand how to defeat his enemies, but why they fight. Her philosophical lesson leaves Peter unsettled, but more alert. Meanwhile, Kingpin and Dr. Landon discuss Smythe's unexpected behavior. Landon reveals that Smythe has begun reprogramming himself, accessing memories of his father. Impatient, Kingpin decides to push forward with his plans, ignoring the growing risks. During a public Oscorp event, Peter crosses paths with Mary Jane. She confesses she chose Harry for stability, but her heart still wavers. The tension between them rises, but there's no time for feelings. Smythe attacks the event, targeting Norman Osborn. Amid the chaos, Mary Jane and Harry are abducted. Peter tracks Smythe to Kingpin's base and makes a devastating discovery. Spencer Smythe, Alistair's father, is alive, cryogenically frozen, used as a tool of manipulation. Upon learning the truth, Alistair breaks free from Kingpin's control. Regaining his autonomy, Smythe turns against his former master. Later, Mary Jane opens up to Spider-Man, admitting she's in love with someone else. She doesn't say who, but Spider-Man knows exactly who she means. Her feelings still belong to Peter. In the dead of night, we see Cletus Cassidy's house surrounded by police. Grinning amid the chaos, he threatens to detonate D9 explosives. Peter Parker is there as Spider-Man and averts the disaster by hurling the explosive into the sky. The move averts catastrophe and underscores the threat Cassidy poses. Soon after, Madame Web appears and warns Peter. An unstoppable force is approaching. She speaks of fear, unlikely alliances, and enemies who may become allies. Meanwhile, Eddie Brock, confined in Ravencroft, struggles to recover from the loss of his symbiote, but the resentment still burns. Baron Mordo appears in astral form and offers him a chance at revenge in exchange for loyalty to Dormammu. Eddie accepts, and Venom is reborn. Elsewhere, Peter and Deborah witness the activation of an interdimensional portal at Stark Industries, but the event is disrupted when Venom storms in to seize the device. Mordo reveals that the original symbiote was about to reproduce. He brings the offspring to Cassidy, who welcomes it with manic delight. Carnage is born, a chaotic, utterly inhuman creature. Venom initially attacks Stark Enterprises alone, but Carnage soon joins the battle under Dormammu's orders. Spider-Man steps in to stop them, joined by War Machine. The fight is fierce. Carnage proves even deadlier than Venom. Only with unexpected alliances can they hope to triumph. Dr. Ashley Kafka tries to bring Eddie back to reason, but Venom is consumed by rage. Still, a seed of doubt is planted. Could he still be saved? In the end, Venom and Carnage unite as symbiotes bonded by origin, sealing a pact of destruction. Venom and Carnage clash in a brutal showdown, their violent urges spiraling out of control. Caught in the middle of the chaos, Spider-Man scrambles to understand what's going on. Meanwhile, Dormammu demands the return of the interdimensional machine, as Carnage continues absorbing energy, indifferent to the destruction left in his wake. Amidst the turmoil, Eddie Brock fights to resist Venom's influence. With the help of Dr. Ashley Kafka and an experiment combining sonic pulses and infrared heat, he manages to temporarily separate from the symbiote. Free at last, Eddie shows remorse, a vital first step, but the relief is short-lived. Ashley decides to confront Carnage alone and is captured. Everything changes. Without hesitation, Eddie rejoins the symbiote. This time, not out of hatred, out of love. Venom returns, reborn with purpose, and for the first time, he teams up with Spider-Man. Alongside them, Iron Man enters the fray. The final battle begins. Dormammu and Carnage versus an unlikely trio. Their only hope is to hurl Carnage into the interdimensional portal. Venom seizes him, holding him back, and both are pulled inside. Ashley is safe, but Eddie chooses to stay behind and ensure the monster can't escape. Silence. Eddie and Carnage vanish. Ashley survives. Venom's sacrifice lingers, a hard truth to accept. The time dilation accelerator resurfaces in the criminal underworld, and the Hobgoblin will stop at nothing to get his hands on it. With the power to manipulate time and open portals, the device threatens the safety of the entire city. Despite being drained by the endless cycle of battles, Peter Parker dons the suit once more and swings back into action. Meanwhile, Felicia Hardy is celebrating her engagement to Jason Phillips. Peter attends the party, but tensions run high. Harry Osborn confronts him, unloading long-held resentments and accusing him of stealing his former girlfriend. The mood takes a darker turn with the unexpected arrival of Kingpin, triggering Peter's spider sense. After all, many of the guests at the party are actually villains in disguise. Behind the scenes, Norman Osborn is pressured by Kingpin to reveal a disturbing truth. Jason Phillips is the Hobgoblin. Horrified, Felicia ends the engagement the moment she uncovers the truth. Jason tries to intimidate her into silence, but is ultimately defeated. The engagement lies in ruins, and Felicia breaks free from the web of lies. Amidst the chaos, Norman reclaims his identity as the Green Goblin, once again succumbing to his unstable persona. He clashes with the Hobgoblin in a brutal goblin-on-goblin war, a symbolic duel between the original creator lost to madness and the power-hungry pretender. The battle ends with the Hobgoblin trapped in another dimension, and Norman recovering the temporal device. Norman survives, but now, the Green Goblin persona fully consumes his mind. Among the wreckage, he vows to modify the time dilation accelerator into a weapon of ultimate power, and promises to eliminate Osborn's enemies, one by one. Peter Parker reaches his breaking point. Confronted by Madame Web, he rejects his role in Destiny, declaring he wants no more battles or prophecies. With Mary Jane by his side, he believes he finally has everything he needs, but the price of this choice will be steep. Meanwhile, Norman Osborn grows increasingly unstable, consumed by the Green Goblin persona. Mad with ambition, he plans to harness new interdimensional technology to defeat Spider-Man. And now, he knows Peter Parker's secret. Peter begins to notice irregularities in his spider sense, something that's never happened before. He feels watched, exposed, exactly as Osborn planned. At Harry's party, Peter and Mary Jane are met with veiled threats. Norman publicly taunts Peter, throwing subtle jabs about his secret identity. Fearing he might be unmasked, Peter overcharges his web cartridge to trigger a small explosion and slip away, but the blast inadvertently starts a fire. In the backyard, with no suit or gear, he is brutally attacked. He nearly dies, escaping only by a hair's breadth. When he gets home, he finds Aunt May safe. But the message is clear. Osborn can reach him anytime. Soon after, Aunt Anna is exposed to the Goblin's gas and collapses, and Mary Jane is kidnapped. Desperate, Peter sets out for a final confrontation. The battle with the Green Goblin is ferocious. At the height of the fight, Mary Jane falls into an interdimensional vortex. Peter tries to save her and fails. She vanishes before his eyes. It's as if the world comes crashing down. Devastated, Peter returns to Madame Web. He begs for her help, but she refuses, saying he chose to walk this path alone and there's no turning back. All he sees now is the pain of losing Mary Jane, and the grim certainty that he may never see her again. After everything that has happened, Peter feels he can no longer carry the burden of being Spider-Man. In a symbolic gesture, he abandons the suit and the mission. Meanwhile, Robbie Robertson wakes up with a gun in his hand and is wrongfully sentenced to 15 years in prison. His son, Randy, lashes out at everything, including Spider-Man himself. In a rare show of loyalty, J. Jonah Jameson takes up his old alter ego, Jigsaw Jameson, and dives into the criminal underworld to uncover the truth. As the investigation unfolds, it's revealed that Robbie's transfer to Rooker's Island Penitentiary was orchestrated by the Kingpin. Inside the prison, Robbie comes face to face with an old nemesis, Tombstone, making his situation even more precarious. Also held at Rooker's is Richard Fisk, the Kingpin's own son, who is deeply entangled in the conspiracy. Meanwhile, Peter learns of the setup and, despite his inner turmoil, realizes he must act. With Spider-Man's intervention and the evidence gathered by Jameson, Robbie is exonerated. In court, the truth is brought to light. For the first time, Jameson acknowledges Spider-Man's worth. Peter feels vindicated in his decision. Jameson suggests he start taking photos of Spider-Man again, and Peter agrees. Most importantly, he regains his conviction as a hero. Late at night, Dr. Octopus confronts Anastasia Hardy at the family mansion, blackmailing her over past transgressions tied to the theft of the Ausbach fortune. Felicia Hardy, witnessing the encounter, is left in shock. Just as tensions reach a breaking point, Spider-Man arrives to face off against Octopus. The clash ends in confusion, with no major structural damage. Despite the disruption, Anastasia remains cold and dismissive toward Peter, determined to keep the scandal under wraps and away from the authorities. Felicia, however, stands up for the hero. Skeptical of Octopus's accusations, Peter launches his own investigation and uncovers that the cat, the infamous thief of the Ausbach fortune, is none other than John Hardesky, Felicia's father. This revelation ties the mystery directly to the Hardy family. Meanwhile, the Kingpin captures Dr. Octopus and forces him into his service, seeking the secret that Hardesky possesses. John is being held in a top-secret SHIELD facility, sharing a cell with the Chameleon, now equipped with advanced tech that streams everything he sees in real time. Peter infiltrates the SHIELD base and learns that, as a child, Hardesky witnessed the creation of Captain America and memorized the super soldier serum formula, the very reason reason he's being hunted. With the help of Chameleon and a stealth aircraft outfitted with cloaking technology, Kingpin infiltrates the facility, kidnaps Hardesky, and replaces him with a disguised imposter. Felicia Hardy, now transformed into the Black Cat, has been injected with the super soldier formula, but there's a dark catch. The formula conceals her identity and places her under the control of the Kingpin, who is holding her father, John Hardesky, hostage. Despite her newfound powers, she's nothing more than a desperate daughter fighting to free her father. At the Kingpin's hideout, Felicia finally reunites with John. The moment is raw and emotional. He pleads with her to run, to save herself, even if it means leaving him behind. Meanwhile, Peter Parker is summoned by J. Jonah Jameson to the Daily Bugle. There, he makes a shocking discovery. Felicia's mother, Anastasia Hardy, is hiding out in Jameson's apartment. Felicia decides to take matters into her own hands. She approaches Spider-Man and asks for his help to rescue her father, carefully avoiding any hint of her true identity. Spider-Man, hesitant at first, ultimately agrees. Together, they infiltrate the Kingpin's base. Inside, John Hardesky manages to digitally erase the super soldier formula, a critical blow to the Kingpin's ambitions. As they attempt to escape, they're confronted by Dr. Octopus and an army of henchmen. A fierce battle ensues, but they fight their way out. Amid the chaos, Black Cat and Spider-Man repeatedly come to each other's aid, forging a fragile but growing trust. Once safe, John shares a heartfelt farewell with Felicia and Anastasia. To keep them out of harm's way, he makes the painful choice to disappear from their lives forever. Peter says goodbye to Aunt May, who leaves to take care of Anna Watson. Alone, he sinks into dark thoughts. Mary Jane's absence still weighs heavily on him, and even with his aunt's unwavering faith in goodness, he's no longer sure he can keep being a hero. Anger and grief are eating away at him, until the routine is broken by an attack at the university. Kraven, once an ally, resurfaces, wild, aggressive, and unrecognizable. Investigating, Peter learns that Kraven has stolen Dr. Reeves's serum, the very one Mariah Crawford had helped refine. Mariah is said to be in Africa now, but the theft raises questions. Peter doesn't yet know why Kraven took the serum, but he suspects Kraven has begun using it again. Meanwhile, Black Cat confronts Peter about his coldness. He confesses, maybe he doesn't care anymore. Pain is stripping away his humanity, and that terrifies him more than any villain ever could. Then, the truth is revealed. The violent creature roaming the city is Mariah Crawford. In an attempt to save her from a terminal illness, Kraven used the serum on her, but the result was catastrophic. Mariah became a beast. Kraven won't fight her. He loves her. He's the architect of this tragedy, and he bears it alone. With help from Deborah Whitman, who consulted Dr. Kurt Connors, they managed to create a partial antidote. Kraven tries to save Mariah, but she refuses. She embraces what she's become, and he chooses to go with her. No cure, just acceptance. Peter watches, torn. How far is too far to keep fighting? When does sacrifice become surrender? Later, in the city, Peter sees Harry Osborn standing outside Mary Jane's house. They're both broken. Peter thinks of speaking to Harry, but realizes he has nothing to offer, only the same emptiness they both carry. A new threat stirs. Deborah and Clay, with the backing of the Herbert Foundation, secretly established by Herbert Landon, discover Morbius in hibernation. Despite lingering doubts, they decide to revive him. Deborah confesses her feelings for Morbius, only to find out his heart still belongs to Felicia. Upon learning that Michael is back, Felicia cancels her trip to the West Coast. She turns to Whistler, who gives her a device capable of putting Morbius into eternal slumber, but before she can use it, everything spirals out of control. Herbert Landon and Shocker abduct Morbius, aiming to exploit the secrets of Neogenics. Peter and Felicia attempt to stop them, throwing everything they have at the villains. Though they fail to rescue Morbius, Peter manages to place a tracker on the enemy's helicopter. Felicia pulls away, shaken. Peter tries to reach her, to offer support, but she, still as the Black Cat, thanks him for his help, and says she needs to face her inner turmoil alone. Morbius, weakened, struggles against his bloodlust, refusing to prey on innocents. That's when Miriam appears, an ancient vampire with a psychic connection to him. She seeks the Recombinator, a device capable of turning humans into vampires. As Morbius resists, Miriam mentally overwhelms him and obtains what she came for. Meanwhile, Deb laments that Landon has stolen all the lab equipment, while Felicia looks for another way to help. It's soon discovered that Landon kept the Recombinator, which Miriam steals under her mind control. Spider-Man finds victims severely drained of plasma and suspects Morbius has resumed his attacks. Tensions rise among the allies. Should they save Morbius or destroy him? Felicia advocates for helping him, and her unwavering faith in his redemption touches even the skeptics. Blade, still disoriented, recognizes Miriam as his mother and protects her, unaware that she's manipulating him, until she reveals her true plan, to create an army of vampires. Blade is forced to confront his own mother, now leading the push to convert humans into vampires. In the climax, Miriam begins the mass transformation. Blade hesitates, but with Terry Lee's support, he refuses to join his mother. The final battle is both physical and emotional. Miriam escapes, and the threat is contained, for now. Blade is left torn between duty and blood ties. Felicia reunites with Morbius and stands by him. The serum he's using might help him gain control, and with Felicia by his side, hope for redemption grows stronger. In a mature decision, Felicia chooses to move forward alone as Black Cat. She parts with Peter with love and resolve, saying there are causes greater than their romance. Now partially recovered, Morbius offers to help Blade by using his psychic link with Miriam. Harry begs for his father's presence, but the one who answers is the dark voice of the Green Goblin, or what's left of him. This entity begins to manipulate him, guiding Harry to a hidden Oscorp lair, feeding his vulnerability with promises of reuniting with his father and reclaiming what he's lost. There, in a room concealed behind a sync-triggered mechanism, Harry finds everything he needs to become the new Goblin, and he accepts. Peter tries to move on with Liz, until an explosion hits them both. He barely manages to save Liz, but the nature of the attack makes it clear. There's a new Green Goblin in town. Peter starts connecting the dots. It can only be Harry. Things escalate when the Punisher enters the scene. He suspects Peter might be the Goblin in disguise, and believes he's involved in Mary Jane's disappearance. Peter denies it, but that's not enough. The Punisher only trusts actions, and Peter's actions put him under suspicion, even among allies. Peter breaks into the Osborn mansion and discovers a laptop with a list of Goblin hideouts across New York. The confirmation is undeniable. Harry is involved. Peter sets off on a manhunt, but the Punisher tails him, convinced Peter's hiding something. Meanwhile, Harry begins to follow the voice claiming to be his father without question, believing that by fulfilling his mission, he'll see him again. He embraces his role without hesitation. Destroy Spider-Man. Harry is now the new Green Goblin. The final showdown takes place on the same bridge where Norman Osborn once fell. Harry arrives on a new glider and attacks with fury. The Punisher also shows up, and chaos erupts. Peter tries to save his friend, but the battle is intense. In the end, just like his father, Harry falls. Peter is devastated. Not again, but there's nothing he can do. When all seems lost, Mary Jane appears, confused, not knowing where she's been. She goes to Peter's home and says she had to see him. She says she loves him. He responds with an emotional embrace, but the mystery remains. How did she return? Harry is taken in for treatment. Peter feels a glimmer of hope. The Daily Bugle is hosting a pirate-themed masquerade ball. Peter Parker snaps photos, while J. Jonah Jameson grumbles about the costume. The centerpiece of the evening is a rare artifact recovered from a Spanish galleon, but the party descends into chaos when automatons storm the ballroom. Mysterio leads the attack, turning the event into a waking nightmare. Spider-Man swings into action, rescues Jameson, and plants a tracker in the commotion. Later, two police officers talk about Mysterio's tragic past, a filming accident involving actress Miranda Wilson, who has been missing ever since. This ties the villain to recent events centered around the same film studios. Meanwhile, Mary Jane lands a role in the very film Miranda was working on before the accident. The scenes are scheduled to be shot at the now abandoned Wonder Studios, Mysterio's former hideout. During rehearsals, MJ hears eerie voices and experiences unsettling phenomena. Panicked, she locks herself in her dressing room and vanishes. Suspicious, Spider-Man visits the prison to confront Beck. He confirms his identity and warns Peter something far more sinister is lurking in those studios. Meanwhile, Beck is seen negotiating with Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, in exchange for access to simulacrum technology developed by Alistair Smythe. Fisk agrees, on one condition: Spider-Man must be eliminated. Their alliance escalates the threat, now powered by deadly robotic replicas. Following the tracker, Peter uncovers robots mimicking his greatest foes. Using cunning and agility, he takes them down. But the true shock comes when Miranda Wilson reappears. Disfigured, she survived the accident, and with Beck's help, developed a method to transfer her mind into another body, MJ's. Due to their resemblance, the plan fails. Miranda breaks down. In a final act of redemption, Beck reveals the process was never viable. He only wanted to preserve what was left of her mind. Miranda, in desperation, overloads the system. Beck chooses to stay by her side. As the system reaches critical failure, he sacrifices himself along with the woman he once loved, destroying everything. At last, Peter kneels and proposes to MJ. With tears in her eyes, she says yes. It's a rare moment of peace between them. No secrets, no masks. Overjoyed, they visit Dr. Connors and ask him to walk MJ down the aisle, as he's the closest thing Peter has to a father figure. But the conversation is abruptly cut short when reptilian creatures storm the lab and abduct Connors, calling him Father. The mood shifts. A new mystery begins. In a subterranean lair, Connors learns that the creatures were born from a poorly discarded experiment. The fluid he dumped into the sewer mutated into sentient beings, and now they demand he lead them. Racked with guilt, Connors begins to mutate again into the lizard. Meanwhile, MJ and Margaret watch a message Connors left behind, asking them to use a genetic weapon if he loses control. Though heartbroken, Margaret takes on the mission and seeks help from Deborah Whitman. Still grieving Morbius's death, Deborah hesitates, but ultimately decides to act. She works to reprogram the weapon, aiming to neutralize rather than kill. Her resolve reignites her passion for science. Peter is captured and forced to fight in an underground arena. One of the creatures, Yila, begins to empathize with humans and challenges her siblings' methods, revealing a clash of values within the group. The climax comes as the lizard declares all humans must be destroyed. Margaret, MJ, and Deborah arrive with the weapon. Their presence and the emotional confrontation between Connors and his children makes him falter. In a crucial moment, Connors regains control of his mind. The bomb is triggered, but instead of destroying, it heals. The threat is over. Connors finds redemption. Peter reflects. On that day, the world was saved by 3 ordinary women. MJ vows to stay by his side no matter what. With a resolute gaze and a silent kiss, they reaffirm their bond. Peter visits Aunt May, who gives her nephew the old wedding rings that once belonged to her and Uncle Ben, a touching gesture. Meanwhile, Harry Osborn is undergoing therapy sessions with Dr. Kafka, revealing muddled dreams that blend Peter, his father, and Spider-Man. He begins to suspect his friend's true identity. Mary Jane visits Harry with Liz and drops a bombshell. She's marrying Peter. Harry pretends to be happy for them, but inside, he's shattered. Soon, he starts having visions of Norman Osborn, pushing him back into the Green Goblin persona. He forms an uneasy alliance with Silvermane and Smythe to challenge the Kingpin. Elsewhere, J. Jonah Jameson learns that Fisk plans to exploit Peter and MJ's wedding as a PR stunt. Outraged, he takes charge of organizing the ceremony in his own egocentric yet surprisingly generous way. On the big day, the Green Goblin crashes the ceremony with Smythe's attack robots. Spider-Man and Black Cat leap into action. Liz confronts Harry and begs him to stop. Moved, he surrenders and asks to return to Ravencroft. With the threat gone, Peter and MJ finally tie the knot. A simple, heartfelt moment. In the end, Jameson gives Peter a car, an unexpected gift brimming with hidden affection. Peter is summoned by Nick Fury to investigate a threat tied to a powerful weapon. Meanwhile, the Kingpin moves swiftly, reactivating the Insidious Six, now with the Vulture as part of the team. At home, Peter finds his parents' old passports in the attic, prompting him to dig deeper into their past. His search leads him to Keen Marlowe, an old friend of Ben Parker. Peter secretly follows Marlowe to a hidden shield base, where he overhears a startling conversation. Despite new evidence, his parents are still officially considered traitors. Suddenly, the base is attacked by the Insidious Six, and the Chameleon is freed. Peter fails to stop them. After the attack, Marlowe confesses the truth. He, Richard, and Mary Parker were agents investigating Groitzig, a scientist developing a weapon of mass destruction. Determined to clear his family's name, Peter heads to Russia with Robbie, backed by MJ. In Moscow, Peter and Robbie track down Groitzig's daughter, who reveals the truth. The Parkers were trying to prevent a Nazi weapon, created by the Red Skull, from being unleashed. What was once believed to be betrayal was actually an act of heroism. But everything falls apart when Carl, the woman's husband, is revealed to be the Chameleon. He steals a mysterious box. Peter is captured and taken to Kingpin's base in Chernobyl, where he's forced to fight Shocker, Vulture, and Dr. Octopus. Kingpin unveils his master plan, world domination using the Nazi weapon. Suddenly, Silver Sable storms the facility and frees Peter. Together, they uncover the real threat, Commissar Kragov, son of the Red Skull, who is determined to carry on his father's sinister legacy. As the base collapses under radiation, Peter and Sable barely escape, but the weapon remains in the wrong hands. Back in New York, Peter finally tells Aunt May everything. For the first time, he can feel proud of his parents, not as traitors, but as true heroes. Peter uncovers a long-buried secret in American history: the 6 American warriors, World War II soldiers who wielded power-activating rings, the result of an unstable super soldier serum experiment. These heroes thwarted the activation of Project Doomsday, a devastating weapon that could only be triggered with 6 keys. Captain America sacrificed himself in the final battle, and the remaining warriors scattered the keys across across the country. The emotional blow strikes when Peter learns his parents were connected to the weapon's creator, not as allies, but as saboteurs trying to stop its development. The legacy of Captain America weighs heavily on his shoulders, and the real punch follows fast. Whizzer and Miss America are ambushed, their keys stolen. Kingpin now holds 2 of the 6. Chaos arrives at the Parker household. Amid the assault, Keen Marlowe reveals his true identity, the Destroyer, the last surviving warrior. Though aged and frail, he makes a stand to protect the key hidden within the home, but is gravely wounded. His valor rekindles Peter's admiration for these forgotten champions. In his final moments, Keen opens up. He once vied for Lenora Sharp's love against Ben Parker, Peter's uncle. A rash decision cost Lenora her life. Racked with guilt, Keen handed over his ring and key to Ben. Now, the legacy of the warriors rests with Peter. Keys begin to mysteriously disappear. Robbie asks Omar Mosley, the same professor who once told Peter everything, to protect the remaining ones, but they are attacked by an imposter. That's when Omar reveals the truth. He is the real Black Marvel. During the war, he wore the mask in Dan Lyon's place. Peter is stunned. A hero had been hiding in plain sight all along. The veterans decide to suit up once more. Though weakened, they head for their old base. Thunderer shows up, but is captured by the Insidious Six, still working for Kingpin. The last key falls into the wrong hands. Then, everything changes. The Chameleon betrays Kingpin and joins forces with Kragov, the Red Skull's son. The new plan: free his father from the antimatter vortex. The true enemy returns, the Red Skull. The veterans are imprisoned, but not for long. Captain America is back, leading the Wild Pack alongside Silver Sable. They break the prisoners free and reignite hope. Silver reveals she's carrying on her father's mission, hunting down war criminals. The final battle erupts. Red Skull's robots fail due to lack of power, and the heroes strike back. The traitors are stopped. Red Skull is defeated, and the Doomsday Plan collapses. The war begins. Red Skull leads his offspring in a brutal assault on the compound where the heroes are hiding. Amid the chaos, Reinhold and Chameleon turn on their own allies, vying for power, and plunging everything into a tragic family conflict. But none of this was the endgame. Red Skull unveils his secret weapon, a machine that transforms his son into Electro. Now, he's a living bomb of infinite energy. S.H.I.E.L.D. attempts a counterattack, but is wiped out in the blink of an eye. Spider-Man realizes the only hope is a desperate gamble: lure Electro into the energy vortex created by Red Skull, a trap designed to imprison any being from any era. The battle is intense. Peter deceives Electro, forcing him to absorb the anomaly, and the energy consumes him. Electro is defeated, but the cost is steep. Captain America remains trapped inside the vortex. Even as he encourages Peter to the end, he chooses to stay, bringing the cycle to a close with honor. The Beyonder creates his own battleground by transforming a peaceful planet into a war zone and summons Earth's most notorious villains: Dr. Octopus, Dr. Doom, the Lizard, Smythe, and the Red Skull. Powerless, Peter pleads for peace, but his words fall on deaf ears. Now, he must build an army. Using a device crafted by the Beyonder himself, Spider-Man gathers his allies: Captain America, Iron Man, Storm, and the Fantastic Four. But their arrival on the planet is a catastrophe. Ben and Johnny start bickering with Peter right away. Reed tries to keep the group focused, but before they can make sense of the situation, giant worms attack. The threat forces them to unite. The Lizard is restrained. Sue uses her powers to activate the base's defenses. For the first time, they fight as a team. The most powerful moment comes with Kurt Connors. Reed helps him regain control, even if just for a moment, and he chooses to stand with the heroes. Though seen as a monster, he shows he's still human. It's the first sign that this war will be more than physical. It will be moral as well. Blade and Morbius face off against Miriam, the Vampire Queen, and Blade's mother. The reunion is anything but tender. Blade rejects her outright. Meanwhile, Peter teleports Felicia mid-battle, prompting her to lash out at him. She accuses him of selfishness for dragging her into this cosmic mission, abandoning young heroes back on Earth. Despite the tension, they press forward with the team toward Red Skull's fortress, braving disasters and unearthing secrets. Iron Man now relies on his suit to breathe, and Lizard improvises a tech fix to keep him going. Among the villains, Red Skull, Smythe, and Octopus forge uneasy, treacherous alliances. Felicia unveils a dark truth from her past. She was a test subject for the super soldier serum, on Red Skull's orders. Upon reaching the fortress, battle erupts. Iron Man throws everything he's got into the fight. Storm clears a path with her elemental powers, and Peter disables the defense drones. United, the heroes push forward, but Skull escapes, taking Felicia with him. Peter and Captain America rescue her, and Felicia finally acknowledges Peter's leadership. Elsewhere, Blade and Morbius continue their hunt for her. With Red Skull and Dr. Octopus defeated, the heroes head to New Latveria in search of the Fantastic Four. Reed, Sue, and Johnny are injured. Ben has been captured by Doom, who has reverted him back into his human form. Now, a god after merging his powers with those of the Beyonder, Doom imprisons the heroes. When they resist, Doom brings down a mountain on top of them. The survivors face manifestations of Doom's nightmares, twisted reflections of his own mind. Peter confronts him with the truth. Doom falls, undone by his own arrogance. The Beyonder appears and reveals that everything was a test, then erases the heroes' memories. They all return to Earth, all except Peter. Peter returns to a devastated New York City. According to the Beyonder, the one responsible for this chaos is him. He's soon attacked by Spider-Carnage, a corrupted, symbiote-infused version of himself. Madam Web and the Beyonder reveal that the multiverse is collapsing. To prevent total destruction, Peter must gather other versions of Spider-Man. As they launch their plan to stop Spider-Carnage, tragedy strikes. Mary Jane disintegrates. She was a clone all along. Shaken but resolute, Peter leads the Spider-Men in a desperate assault on the dimensional transmitter. The war begins. The Spider-Men manage to stop the bomb, but Spider-Carnage escapes to another reality, where Peter is a billionaire and engaged to Gwen Stacy. Peter impersonates his alternate self, investigates Carnage's plan, and confronts him during a charity gala. After a fierce battle, Gwen is kidnapped. Realizing that brute force isn't enough, Peter brings Uncle Ben from that universe. His heartfelt words move Spider-Carnage, who sacrifices himself. Peter bids farewell to Uncle Ben, and is then guided by Madam Web to a universe where he is nothing more than a fictional character. There, he swings through the skies alongside Stan Lee, creator and creation together one last time.